most important people affected by the shutdown of Valken are the employees. They got sent home without their final paycheck. But it's not only them. There are mom and pop businesses who have ordered equipment from Valken that just never showed up during the bankruptcy. Last but not least, there are teams of successful paintball players who have worked hard to podium in regional and national events, and they never received their paint contingency winnings. They never got their refund for the Valken paint that they shot. How the hell did we get here? Let's take a deep dive on the special episode of Will Ball for Soup. What's up, guys? Scotty here with Will Ball for Soup. It's been a minute since we last spoke, but I've been very active on Instagram. However, sometimes the situation is so complex that an Instagram post just doesn't do it justice. There's a lot of moving pieces here with Valken's bankruptcy and subsequent shutdown. Now, to get you guys the best information possible, I have worked my sources. I have 2 Valken employees who went on the record, which have fed me the information to make this episode. I really wish that it was financially worth my while to keep putting out YouTube content, but it's not. These videos take hours and hours, and the money that I get back from them is just pennies, dude. It's not worth it. But I'm still here. I'm still very active on Instagram. And if you're wondering what's going on in between uploads, there's breaking news every week. Let's also establish my intent here. I'm not celebrating that a paintball company has fallen. Anytime a paintball company shuts its doors, that actually makes me sad, dude. I'm not dancing on Valken's grave. That's not me. That's not my intent. When Indian Creek Designs shut down, I was sad because I had a Bushmaster. When Angel shut down, I was sad. I had an Angel 1 that never worked. When AKA shut down, well, I never owned an AKA gun, but go down in the comments if you're OG enough to remember AKA, the low pressure experts. But when they stopped making markers, I was a little sad, dude. So whenever we see these companies that have been producing products but failing to remain financially viable, it sucks, man. It's a sign that things are rough with the industry. And in some of my posts, I've hinted at that. A lot of the industry folks that I've spoken to have said they're down sales-wise somewhere between 20 and 33% year to date. Now, as far as Valken goes, I am truly neutral. I think Valken has made some good products in the past, and they've made some bad products in the past. When I was managing a retail storefront, I would always recommend the Valken VMAX 2 at like $60 versus a Reloader B at $80 or $90. It's a better deal. It's a lighter loader. Valken's paintballs have gotten pretty good year after year. They've gotten better. I shot Valken graffiti the last time I played paintball, had 0 issues. Valken's tournament paint doing really well. Valken's recreational low-end paint, it's gotten better over time. So Valken has taken some steps to improve their image. But there are a couple things here that I'm going to point out in this video which are fatal to Valken. These are the things that killed them off according to people who've worked for the company. Now, I'm going to start with the spiciest stuff and what happened to the Valken employees when they announced their shutdown. But even before that, we got to talk about the bankruptcy situation. So let's get right into the meat of this video right now. Let's throw it back to June 26th of this year when I broke the news that Valken had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. A Chapter 11 bankruptcy does not necessarily mean that it's the end of days for Valken. It's a corporate restructuring. It's a debt restructuring. Valken's going to get leaner. They're going to reorganize their debts. They're going to consolidate their debts, and they're going to come back better and stronger. The dollar amount here was a little peculiar. I posted that it was between $10 and $50 million that they owed to their creditors. Now, Valken's creditors is also interesting. One of their main ones was providing the ingredients that they were making paintballs for. I also saw an Airsoft battery supplier, Airsoft equipment suppliers, that type of thing. So between 10 and 50 million, they're going to resettle and try and get back on track. However, one of their creditors was trying to file a motion to turn the Chapter 11 bankruptcy into a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Now, a Chapter 7 bankruptcy is a liquidation-style bankruptcy where it's a fire sale. They got to get rid of everything and close their doors and pay off their creditors because that is the end of days. Last time I checked in on this part of the story, Valken is still fighting it out in court, trying to prevent from going into Chapter 7. But during this legal battle, how I appear to receive the news is that Valken has decided to close their doors and not necessarily fight that bankruptcy. They're just done. All right, strap in for this one as we're heading into the interview transcript right now. So I'm going to start off by saying that the Valken employees were never contacted, not once throughout the entire bankruptcy process. Not one email, phone call, no team meetings, not even a Zoom. If it wasn't for my reporting, a lot of them would never have known that Valken is going through this bankruptcy. They filed for bankruptcy just 2 days after NXL Midwest ended. So this is not only catching the Valken employees off guard, it's catching the entire paintball community off guard. Nobody really saw this coming. I know Valken sales, they haven't been great. They're like a second or third tier company. A lot of the Valken tanks that I got and that I sold at retail, dude, I'd have to put on new burst discs and new fill nipples. I don't know, the VMAXs were all right, but the masks didn't really sell. Their guns didn't really sell. We have a lot of information on Valken's markers being complete flops later in this video. But it's very interesting to note that people who are working in the industry did not know about the Valken bankruptcy until I started reporting on it, which highlights the importance of Will Ball for Soup and paintball having a truly free press. That's me, motherfuckers. I am the free press. I'm not taking money from any company. I am doing this all independently and neutrally. So how did we get here? How did Valken get into this bankruptcy situation? One of the big components of it was going 0 for 3 on releasing new paintball guns. Let's throw it all the way back to the Valken Proton, which was once known as the Mocal. It was a Mocal gun. So Valken redid Mocal's release. They added some new tournament features, a bigger barrel, redesigned the foregrip, redesigned the trigger. I owned one of these, believe it or not. I had a prototype Valken Proton, probably back in 2013, 2014. Got it in a trade with a Valken player. So it was not a bad shooter, and it was a very small, light package. The only downside was the shot quality. It was a little bit hard on paint for a spool valve. And obviously the solenoid was one of those cheap Spider clapper solenoids. So you have a clapper solenoid in a entry-level tournament marker. So this thing, it's not ugly. It's not an ugly gun. It's just that it didn't sell. Nobody wanted this thing over an Axe or a Mini or a Proto Die Rise or anything like that. So it was a bottom-tier choice. And nobody bought this thing, and Valken lost money on converting the Mocal gun into the Valken gun. They were thinking, okay, we have a hit on our hands. We're going to compete with the Axe and the Rise, and this thing just didn't sell. It sat on store shelves until it got clearanced out. Now it's kind of like a little bit of an uncommon marker because nobody even knows about it. So the Valken Proton, I think it's a good-looking gun, dude. You compare this thing to like an Axe, it looks better than an Axe. But the Axe is more reliable, and the Axe has more support. You break your Axe, everybody's going to have parts for it. This thing, it's just so obscure, nobody cared. So Valken goes 0 for 3, but the third marker didn't even come out, but we have one in between. The next Valken marker we need to talk about is the Valken Code. The Valken Code clearly resembles the original Empire Mini. So this marker came out. People liked how it performed. It has a really simple spool valve design. According to QMTO and others who have owned it, they all have really good things to say about it. And then the other part of the Valken Code that was a good value proposition is that the Mini GS and the Mini were selling at $350 retail. This thing was $100 less. This was a $250 Mini GS, kind of a knockoff. And that's how everybody perceived it. It was so much alike to the Axes and the Minis, Mini GS, that people are just like, why am I going to even mess with this thing when the Mini GS is just so popular? So this thing went on clearance basically after its release. Nobody cared about it. Nobody bought it. Valken developed another higher end tournament level, entry level tournament gun, and nobody bought it. Now, we're going into a different direction now. With Valken's third release that we're talking about in this video, the Valken Ripsaw. The Valken Ripsaw was a scenario-style marker. It had mag feed options, and Valken was really excited that this was going to take over the scenario and tactical paintball scene. Now, this marker got so far along in its development that they were showing it at scenario events, at tournaments, and they were even allowing retailers to pre-order these. Now, the amount of R&D that went into the Valken Ripsaw, which is a great name. I got to give it to Valken. That's a really cool name for a scenario product. Like, I'm going to bust out my Ripsaw and mow these motherfuckers down. So the Ripsaw sounds cool. It sounds really cool. And I don't give a shit about tactical paintball. I don't care about tactical guns. But for the people who are into it, the Ripsaw kind of generated a little bit of buzz. And they were getting some positive press, some good buzz. Pre-orders were coming in. Scenario ballers were excited about it. But the marker never came to market. There was never a full retail release of the Valken Ripsaw. And according to my interview with a Valken employee, the amount of money that they put into this thing for research and development was significant. It was so significant, they took a big hit with just having this thing be shelved. And I'm not sure why it got shelved. Maybe it was the bankruptcy coming up. Maybe it was the fact that their other two markers, their big markers that were trying to get Valken established, those just never took off. So maybe the third time they pulled the plug before this thing could even really get to be manufactured. So Valken is 0 for 3 on paintball guns. And that's sad, man. And this goes to another big picture idea I have in dropping this video. It's that maybe there are too many mouths to feed in the paintball industry and not enough players. There are too many paintball companies and there are not enough people playing paintball and investing in paintball to make these companies financially viable. I kind of put that out there with one of my Instagram posts, but what I'm really trying to say is there might be too many mouths to feed. Maybe there isn't even room for Valken. Like we have GI, we have HK, we have Defy, we have all these companies, and maybe there's just too many companies and not enough players. That's kind of a really dark perspective on it, but go down in the comments and let me know if you agree with that one. Getting back to other things that came up in the interview, Valken was very proud to announce that they had acquired a new, bigger, and better paintball manufacturing facility. But that manufacturing facility was never put into motion. There was always delays and stalls. Valken trying to expand and get more paint manufacturing here in the USA, which is something commendable. But the organization and the tactics of that, it never worked out, and they just kept transitioning. Other things to note too is that people who pre-ordered that Valken Ripsaw, some people put money down and they never saw their money back or the marker. I've also heard from people who have ordered Airsoft products from Valken during the bankruptcy. They've reached out to me via Instagram and they have not received refunds or the products. So I really, really pray for those small businesses out there. My heart goes out to you. I know how hard it is to survive in this economy, that if you're ordering stuff from Valken and you're not getting it, and they're just like, oh, we're bankrupt. Well, what does that do to the little guy? What does that do to the mom and pop retail shop? So I really hope that the retailers are made whole in this situation. I hope Valken maybe finds a way to restructure. And I actually do know a little bit about what their plans are. We're going to get there at the end of this video. Valken's not necessarily dead. They will likely try and come back as something else, and their paint might come from somewhere else. Let's keep it rolling, boys. This is a fun one. On October the 2nd of this year, Gino woke up and decided it was time to cut his losses. He didn't tell anybody. He made it so nobody at the paint factory or the headquarters could clock in. He sent people home immediately after showing up on that Tuesday. So on top of not warning anybody and dropping them like flies, these employees who are the lifeblood of the company, they decided not to give anybody a final paycheck. He fucked over so many families and employees he's had working for him for 15 to 20 years. And if you're not giving people their final paycheck, like, they're going to be talking to Will Ball for Soup about everything. So that's kind of on you that this story has leaked. Like, please take care of your people if you can. And what's also messed up is one of the guys who I interviewed, he found out that he lost his job when I put up the Instagram story post saying that Valken is shut down. So he asks Gino directly, is it all over? Is Valken shut down? And he says, yep, it's true. Valken shut down and you're out of here. I can't imagine what those people are going through, putting in 15 to 20 years with a company and then only learning of that company's demise through the independent paintball media. So Will Ball for Soup put the word out, and these people are learning from me that Valken is in trouble before any internal communications. They were left in the dark. And if you're in a leadership position at a company, you want to be as transparent as possible to your people. So if you ever work with them again, they'll have a good taste in their mouth versus a bad taste in their mouth. Now, here's where we get into what's next for Valken. And I have some really strong juice on this one. So Gino owns a $5 million house. Big compound, beautiful dream house. Good for him, man. He's been working in the industry forever. Sure. So he's planning on liquidating that house. And if the house money goes through, Valken might resurrect as what's known as VTAC. Valken's tactical brand is kind of referred to as VTAC, but Valken will become VTAC after this liquidation of the property happens. Now, who's going to sell the Valken paint? Valken's all about manufacturing paintballs in the USA, and they're super proud of their paint. It's their crown jewel. Well, the paint facility, those guys are left hanging. All right, guys, so here's where this is going to end. Valken may restructure as VTAC, but who's going to produce their paint? Well, none other than Wurst. Wurst is an emerging Polish paintball manufacturer. They're getting their feet wet in NXL Europe. They're getting more popular over there. So they may produce paint for VTAC, and VTAC may be selling Wurst in the USA under their branding. That is speculation from a former employee. Obviously, the employees who I spoke with, employees plural, they're going to be anonymous, obviously to protect their career. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys enjoyed me hopping back on the mic. So there's not going to be any background video for this one. There's not going to be any music in the background either, because a lot of the times when I use music, there's copyright issues. So this is like a solo dolo. Scotty hops on the mic for about 90 minutes to get this 20-minute video, and we're going to throw it up on YouTube and see what the fuck happens. I hope you guys enjoy rocking with me. Again, follow the Instagram. I know YouTube has been a little bit dry, but it just takes so much time, and the financial reward isn't there. So I'm at a point in my life where I can't keep sacrificing my financial well-being just to be involved with paintball. And I fight a lot with my dad. We're not on the best of terms, but my dad was right. I worked in paintball during some of my prime earnings years. And because of that, I'm at a financial disadvantage going forward into the next stage of my life. And I agree, but those experiences that I got working in paintball will be with me forever. And I was living my dream, but my dream ended, and now I'm back on that corporate grind again. I got a promotion. I got 2 raises. I have a new title. Things are going good in the corporate world, yes. But all that money that I could have been making years and years back, it's just gone. My 401k is not as beefy as it should be. But that's enough about my personal life. I hope everybody's doing all right. I hope you're all doing good. It's been a while since I've been to a paintball field. But I'll leave it here, dudes. Will Ball for Soup and Scotty signing out.
How does it hurt? How bad?
Put your mask on. Well, yes. Rule 1, the mask stays on at all times around the field.
Go back over there. Go back over there.